As much as we would like to think that we only spend money on things that we want, there is something called unconscious family loyalties that also influence how you spend money, but also how you manage money. As someone who's dealt with money beliefs over the past 20 plus years, I understand that even at an unconscious level, these things can be changed instantly to truly transform your money situation altogether. One of the first money beliefs that I dropped to triple my income was that working more hours equaled making more money. And that is actually not true, because there are so many people that make so much more money than people that are working 40, 50, 60, 70 hours a week. And it's like the amount of money that they're making that's over what these people that are making, that's working like these long hours are making. It's not even humanly possible for this person to work 10 times the amount of hours that they're working. And so it really allowed me to understand that just because you work more hours doesn't mean that you're going to make more money. When you think about somebody who works a regular job, and let's say that they work overtime. When you work overtime at a job, you're taxed at a higher rate. Something that's not taken into consideration when people work more hours is all that it takes for those extra hours to actually be accounted for and even possible. Because when people work more hours, it might mean more time taken away from somewhere else. That also costs money. So there are certain costs that comes with working more hours that sometimes people don't even take into consideration because they're only focused on the hourly rate. But when I learned this and when I understood that just because you work more doesn't mean that you're going to make more money, it caused me to work and think differently. Because I remember growing up, I used to hear you either work smarter or you work harder. But then a mentor of mine later on told me, he said you could work smarter or you could work harder, but you could also work higher. And when he told me to work higher, it allowed me to think that, you know what, when you work from a higher perspective, even though you're not working as hard as other people because you're working higher, you're making a higher income than everybody else because you're working higher. When people are at a lower level, they can work all the hours that they want to, but it's only so much they can make at this level. But when you work higher, you don't have to work based on time. You work based on the problem that you solve. And so it's like the bigger the problem that you solve, it doesn't matter how many hours you work. It's like that solution could be very valuable to somebody else who's willing to pay you whatever. They don't really care how long it takes you. As a matter of fact, the quicker you can solve their problem, the more money they're willing to pay you. And so that within itself allowed me to truly understand that just because you work more hours, it does not mean that you make more money. Now, the second money belief that I had to drop was the belief in saying that it's too expensive. When you say that something is too expensive, you're communicating to your subconscious mind that this is something that we can't afford. And when you think about how you communicate this to yourself, it's just communicating to yourself that this is something that is more valuable than we are. And a better replacement is this is overpriced. Because when you think about saying that something is too expensive, that's communicating that you can't afford it. But when you say that something is overpriced, that's not saying that you can't afford it. It's just saying that you just don't agree with with their evaluation of how much they're charging. That's totally different, because your subconscious mind can still say, hey, we can't afford that. We just choose not to buy it because it's not the price that we want to pay. And that's totally different versus when you say that something is too expensive. And so often, especially as kids, like, you hear it all the time, like somebody asks for something, it's like, oh, that's too expensive, that's too expensive. And what it communicates to us unconsciously, even as an adult, is that we're not enough. And that's very, very dangerous. And it's one of the things that I dropped quickly to truly triple my income. Now, the third money belief that I dropped was the competition trap. It's so easy to fall into this when you see somebody who appears to be happy and they're doing great and they have these things that you think you want, and a part of you feels like if they can do it, you can definitely do it. And then it's like when you do what you see and you think they're doing to get what they got, and then you get it and you don't feel how you think they felt, you somehow feel like there's something missing. And when you compete against anybody, you immediately lost, because there's some form of superiority that you feel like that person has, and you feel like you have to maintain this level of excellence, or you have to be better than them to obtain their level. And even if you quote unquote win, there's still a loss that you have because you even feel the need to compete with them in the first place. When really the only person that you can compete with and you can win every single time, and you even make it a winnable game, is when you compete against yourself. One of the worst things in life is to do something great that should never be done at all. And so often people compete with other people, and it's like they get better at competing with other people for what this person's purpose is. It's like their purpose is not your purpose. So it's like when you try to compete with them on their purpose, even if you do something that you think is better than how they did it, you still lost because you're operating at something great that should not be done at all. And it's like, even if you get the status, you get the validation, you're still going to feel empty inside. You're still going to feel like you're not enough because you're not obtaining what it is that's yours to compete against. Now, the fourth money belief that I had to drop in order to triple my income is that it takes a long time to make money. I remember when I was working at a job years and years ago, and I was thinking about saving $30,000. Now that might not sound like a lot of money to a lot of people, and it might sound like a whole lot of money to a lot of people, but when I was thinking about how much I made and how much I wanted to save, it was going to take me all about a little over 2 years to save that amount of money. And that means like I was sacrificing, wasn't eating kind of things that I wanted to eat. Like I was giving up a whole lot, and it was honorable to a certain extent to do that because it's like, hey, when I get this amount of money, then in my mind, I'll finally have the amount of money that I can now invest in something where I can have this money making me money. But think about it, took me 2 years to do it. And then I got introduced to the online space. And I started seeing, I remember the first person that I saw, they made $1 million in a day. And I remember thinking like, how is that humanly possible? How can somebody possibly make $1 million in a day? And then I started to see another person do it, and I saw Frank Kern do it. I saw Evan Pagan do it. I saw like Jeff Walker do it. I started seeing all of these people do it. And it's like, wow, this is not just possible for the first person that I saw, but other people are doing it. Kind of like David Bannister, the 4-minute mile. Like people didn't even think that you could run a mile in 4 minutes. They didn't even think that it was even possible. But soon as he did it, more and more people started to break the 4-minute mile. So much so that today, and this happened years and years ago, but today, a 4-minute mile is common. People do it all the time, and it's the same thing when it comes to money. It's like when you break through the certain financial ceiling that you've been holding yourself to of what's even possible, and you break it, now you start to see it all around you. Now, the fifth money belief that I had to drop was the belief that rich people are evil. This came because when you see like TV, you see cartoons, you see like Marvel movies and things like that, typically the villain is the person that has all the money. You think about 101 Dalmatians, you think about Batman, you think about Spider-Man. I mean, like the list goes on, The Incredibles. All of these different movies that we have watched as kids, we've watched as a family, typically the villain is somebody who is filthy rich. Think about that. We even language being rich and wealthy as something that's dirty, and we put the word filthy on it. And so it took me really seeing things for what they were to understand that it's not about rich people and wealthy people are evil, but evil people are evil. I also started to ask myself the question, how can I ever acquire something that I criticize other people for having? So you think about that. Most people want more money. But how can you acquire more money if you criticize other people for having the same thing that you say that you want? Your unconscious mind is going to always, and I typically never use universals, but your unconscious mind is going to always repel anything that makes you look like the villain in the eyes of yourself. So if you've told yourself that rich people are evil, or rich people are bad, or they had to do something to get over on somebody in order for them to get their wealth, then your unconscious mind is going to always sabotage you in ever getting to that level or getting to your version of that level. Because maybe you're somebody, you don't even aspire to be a billionaire, but maybe you want to be a millionaire. But even on that level, it's like your subconscious mind will always sabotage you to get to that level because it does not want to be associated with anything that's evil because you deem that as something that's important to you. So when I finally woke up and understood that I can never acquire what I criticize other people for having, that's when my money belief started to change as well, and I started to really see that it's not about wealthy and rich people are evil, but it's evil people are evil. That literally turned a switch in my mind that allowed me to understand that it's really important for me to be wealthy, and it's really important for all good people to be wealthy because the more wealth that good people have, the more good they're going to do in the world, just as the opposite is true. And so it just really opened up a whole new world for me and started to understand people as individuals and not putting people in this category because they have this level of wealth that I'm just not at. just yet. And so these are all the money beliefs that I had to drop in order for me to skyrocket my income and truly get to where I really wanted to be and where I knew I was destined to be financially. And understand that even on an unconscious level, you can change your money beliefs immediately and truly get to where you want to be and where you are destined to be and what's a good place for you to be financially, even if you struggle with any of these things like that did in the past. Now, if this is your first time here, I want to ask you to consider subscribing and hit that like button. And I also want to ask you to share this with somebody else who you think can benefit from it, because sometimes we don't even really understand, like, there are certain things that hold us back from getting to where we want to be financially, and it might take a certain voice for you to hear and think that, wow, that's similar to me. But if any of these bears witness to you that you know somebody who can benefit from it, please by all means share with them. And until the next time, I look forward to seeing you in the next video.